Right, so this is part B to exercise 11.14, creating a cash flow statement for Peter Macbeth. Last video, we ran out of time, but we were looking at reconstructing the general ledger for interest account. So we got as far as finding out what we closed it off to, $350 from the income statement. Then the accrued expense was $200. So we worked our way back to find that $150 was what we actually paid in interest in that financial period. So this $150 is the amount that we're going to put into our cash flow statement. So we'll have equals and negative, pick that up from the general ledger reconstruction. And now we're on to the last part, which is payment of operating expenses. So this is anything else left in the general ledger that hasn't already been accounted for in these first three categories. Again, you need to check that there isn't anything sitting on the balance sheet in relation to those, because we'll need to reconstruct. So we've got electricity, advertising. We've already accounted for these three: wages, bad debts, and interest. So if we go over to our balance sheet and just check, there are no others. Okay, there is a prepaid expense for advertising. So what that means is we need to reconstruct the advertising account. Oops. Advertising. Okay, so we know the figure that we closed off to the profit and loss, which is straight from the income statement. Equal income statement, find out our advertising, 15,000, which gives us a balance of nil. We also know that we've got a prepaid expense. So this is something that we actually paid for, which we're not going to use up until the next financial year. So we reduce that amount for our advertising expense that shows in the income statement. So if we go and pick it up from the balance sheet, there it is there, 150. So at this point, we've got a balance of 1,500. But we know that if we add those two together, it will give us the figure that we actually paid for advertising that financial year. So 1,650 is the figure. That's what we put in as our bank. $1,650. So that's the figure that you're going to put into your cash flow statement over here as part of operating expenses. Now you'll still have to add the other one from the income statement. So we'll select that, say plus, go over to our income statement and find that electricity wage. Enter. Negative. So make sure if you use that negative symbol that you put in your brackets correctly. Okay. And that's all we need to do for operating activities. We just need to find out our net cash provided from operating activities. And because we've already recorded those as negatives, we can just put in a sum calculation to find that figure. And then roll those off. Okay, and that is the first step of... Okay, we're now up to cash flows from investing activities. So same process as operating, we start with our inflows and then we'll do our outflows after. In this situation, in this question, there's no inflows, but if there were inflows, you'd have proceeds from loans, and then, oh sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one, proceeds from sale of non-current assets, and potentially a repayment of a loan that we've loaned to a third party. Because we have no inflows, we just leave that out and type in our outflows. The first outflow that we may have is purchase of non-current assets. So you'll find these in the balance sheet. If we go and have a look, under assets, we've got a motor vehicle. It hasn't changed from the previous year, which suggests that we haven't bought a new one and we haven't sold any. So we don't need to look at that. The next one is office equipment though. This has increased from 10,000 to 16,000. So we need to record that. Because it's the asset itself has increased in value, that means we've purchased new office equipment. So that represents an outflow of cash. Equals. Now you only need to find the difference between this year and last year. So 5,800 is the figure. Okay, so just make sure that you do put that negative figure in there because it is an outflow of cash. So put in your negative sign and put your brackets around that formula. Okay, so the next outflow we need to look at is loans made to any third-party entities. So have a look in your assets. And by the look of things, there are 0. Yes. However, there is here investment bonds have increased by $5,000. So again, we've got an outflow of cash. So it's probably better, in fact, to call this. Actually, that's okay. We will just say purchase of investment bonds. And again, the same thing, equals negative, open bracket, go over to our balance sheet, current year minus last year's to get that value, and then close bracket. Now, we didn't have any of the loans to third parties, so that's all we had for outflows in this question. So again, we can get our net cash used in investing activities, which is just the sum of the 5,800 and the 5,000. Sum. Those two and enter. Now it is important in your exam that you do use formulas. The more formulas you use, the easier it will be for me to mark you well and give you higher grades. Right, now we are on to the last part, the last type of activity. So cash from financing activities. Sorry about the typos, I'm just going to leave it so that we don't spend too much time. So again, first of all, we look for inflows if we've taken out new loans, so if our loan values increased within liabilities, and also we look for capital contributions. So if we go over to our balance sheet and we have a look at liabilities, there is a mortgage that's decreased. So it hasn't increased, so that's not an inflow, so we'll deal with that when we look at outflows. And then if we go up to our owner's equity section, we can see that capital has increased, which is our net profit from last year, is why that's increased from 28 to 33. And then if we go down, there's also been this additional capital. So this is the amount we need to record in our cash flow statement. So if we go back over here, now title will be proceeds from capital contributions. Oh, sorry, I forgot to do the inflows. Actually make a inflows heading. So if we get equals, go back to the balance sheet and record that figure. $10,000. Okay. So now we're on to outflows because there wasn't an increase to that mortgage. So for outflows, we're looking for drawings. And drawings. And again, you must remember to indent these if you can. And drawings is really easy. We just go to the balance sheet, find where drawings is, and put that figure in. It's already got a negative in this one, so we can leave that. But if it wasn't shown as a negative on the balance sheet, you would need to make that a negative. Okay. And we already talked about the fact that there is a mortgage, so that would be payment of borrowings. Okay. This one will make it a negative. We'll put in our brackets. Balance sheet, scroll down to liabilities, there it is there. So we are going to take away last year's from this year's. So if it's decreased, it means we've paid it back, hence there has to be negative, it's an outflow of cash. Alright, and that is everything. So if we indent net cash used in financing activities. Okay. And again, it's just the sum of those two. Oh, no, and the cut one. Turn off. Oh, so because it's a positive, which I can do, we need to change that to say provided by. Now we're up to the final step. So step 4 is where we record the increase or decrease for the year, add the opening balance to find our new closing balance. So you'll have net increase or decrease in cash held. Which is simply the sum of those three figures. Figures from each activity. 3,660, and then we're going to add the opening cash balance held. Okay. So this comes straight from the balance sheet, 980. Now, if this business had a cash overdraft, you would need to find that figure, which would be in liabilities, and you'd have to make it a negative. But in this case, that's fine, 980. And then now we can find our new cash balance. So cash balance at the end of the period is simply just the sum of those two figures. Sum. So 4,640, and I like to put this top and double bottom border on there. Makes it nice and neat. If we go back to the balance sheet and we look at this year's bank balance, it's 4,640. They match, so that way we know that we're correct and we've accounted for everything that we need to cash-wise. And that is how to complete a cash flow statement. Your exam's a little bit more complex than this, but it's a good one to practice. Fantastic.